When you think about January 6th, do you think Mike Pence was in the right for certifying the election results, for upholding his duty to the Constitution, or do you think he should have stopped that peaceful transfer of power?
I think he should have. Trump and people in Trump's administration were requesting him to delay it so they could look into the court cases that were going on, because when he did this, a lot of the court cases were still ongoing. And there were still a lot of investigation.
Most of them had been closed, and 33 of them were actually shot down due to evidentiary reasons, these court cases. They brought this evidence, and they said there's not enough evidence. About 13, or maybe it was 14 of the cases were actually rescinded. They were pulled by the people who brought the cases, and then another 15 or so were shot down based on standing. So, which makes me wonder, all of these court cases that he brought, I just don't think there was enough evidence to overturn the election.
And which states were these in? Just out of the few,
all the key swing states. So a lot of the cases were in Georgia, of course. There was a case in Pennsylvania and Arizona. So all of these, the Fulton County cases, of course. So a lot of these judges, though, were appointed by Donald Trump himself. So he appointed these people because he trusted them, and they said, hey, there's not enough evidence for election fraud. And then you see people in Trump's cabinet that he trusted with his life. People like Mike Pence, people like Bill Barr, people like Mark Meadows, Mark Esper. All of these people kept saying, hey, man, there's not enough evidence. So sometimes it scares me when Trump kept pushing that lie, doubling down on what I think was an election fraud lie. And then this all culminated into January 6th, where he holds a rally 10 minutes from the ellipse, and then he says...
What did he say? What did he say?
He said a few things. So you can take one line about peacefully take back your country.
But what else do you need?
You need to take into factor the months of context leading up to it, where he's doubling down.
This is what I don't understand. I think it's funny when people, look. If you want to look at exactly what he said, what did he say? He said, we're going to go down to the Capitol and we're going to peacefully and patriotically make our voices heard.
But this was after months of him saying that.
Did he incite violence that day?
I think in a roundabout way, the months leading up to it, over and over, he said.
Is that enough for a conviction? Roundabout?
It should be.
It's not black letter law.
Well, let me tell you, for the months leading up to it, he kept saying, every institution is against you. Everybody in America is lying to you. You can't trust this. You can't trust that. There is election fraud. So when people go to the Capitol on the day Mike Pence is certifying the election results, and they interrupt the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in American history, they delayed it by, I think it was like 6 hours. They had to do it later, maybe 8 hours. That scares me because I like the Constitution. When we saw Mike...
We all do too, and we're trying to save it from people that are trying to destroy it. But I will say this, and this has to be very...
Didn't Donald Trump himself say he wants to terminate the laws and the rules in the Constitution?
He was concerned with some of the rulings and was concerned with how they were being connected to the Constitution. That was what he was saying. That's another thing that people are always misconstruing. But I want to say this in terms of January 6th. I think this is very key. Me, myself, and I will be very clear with this. I do not support any of the people that were going in there to cause havoc.
Of course.
I'm very clear on that. If you were in there and you were causing problems and you were disrupting the halls of Congress, that they need to be held responsible.
And that is fair.
What needs to also be held in account is looking at the tapes that Speaker McCarthy released. Look at the police officers. Why were police officers standing there giving fist bumps to people walking down the halls of Congress? That's my other question. You had all these police officers there. Why were they not being held responsible?
Well, when you look at the Tucker Carlson tapes, Tucker Carlson released like a 20-minute highlight reel of his favorite moments, but there are like 30,000 hours of footage out there of people breaching different entry points, people breaking through windows. There's videos of Ashley Babbitt climbing through a window and getting shot.
Which was horrible.
What, did she climb through the window or did she get shot?
Well, it was horrible that she, I obviously don't approve of what she did.
Yeah.
But what was horrible was that police officer shot her and killed her. And you know what else? In this country, when you kill someone, you go to jail. When that police officer killed her, he got an award.
Well, you should understand self-defense more than most people, more than like liberals, right? So, and Ashley Babbitt should also understand self-defense.
Was she threatening his life?
It wasn't. Yeah, she was. Okay, so that.
That's the merit of self-defense.
That window was the last barrier between hundreds of people, hundreds of those rioters you were talking about, and our Congress people. That was the last barrier. So when she's breaking in and people are pointing guns at her and they were yelling, "Stop! Don't do this," then essentially it should be implied, especially for a veteran, she should know what self-defense looks like, that you shouldn't be able to breach through that window. And I think when he shot her, I think it was justified. I think it was okay because if she would have gotten through. Yeah. I mean, maybe.
That's a shame. That's sad. I'm not here.
Do you think the hundreds of people behind her should have been able to break through and hurt our Congress people?
Well, my question is, what happened leading up to then? Because if you look at exactly what happened with President Trump requesting National Guard and Muriel Bowser, not Muriel Bowser, maybe it was, I don't know, the mayor of D.C. looking at what she did and her part, and Speaker Pelosi, what they were doing to stop National Guard from coming in.
I think that I've heard that it's the other way around. Donald Trump was sitting.
But again, that's what they say.
Well, that's what the official report says, is that Donald Trump was sitting there watching this unfold on TV.
The corrupt kangaroo court, January 6th.
You think they were corrupt?
Oh, they were horrible. They did such a disservice, and you look at what they did to delete files and remove paperwork. There was clear evidence that Trump, and again, I don't even know why we're talking about this, because when you look at what happened, there are J6ers still in prison today. Today, when you have BLM riders that were just burning down police buildings in Minneapolis, federal police buildings.
I don't agree with the BLM riders burning stuff down.
Why are they not held accountable? Why are they not still in jail?
They weren't trying to commit sedition. They weren't trying to interrupt the peaceful transfer of power.
Federal police building?
Yeah,
sedition, that's federal. It's federal grounds.
But a lot of people were arrested. You know, thousands of people were arrested for the BLM protests. It's different though, because
it's not different.
Were they trying to interrupt the peaceful transfer of power in America? This is a tradition that's been upheld since the inception of America. It's so much different because they were trying.
But again, no matter how you feel about what happened in this election.
I'm glad we're having this talk too. It's a good one.
Yeah. No matter how you feel about this election, if you look at any time in our history, and if a group of people, no matter if they're right or wrong, they may not be warranted, they may be warranted in what they feel, but if you believe in your heart that your election and your vote did not count and was stolen from you, I'd be at the Capitol. I wasn't there on January 6th, but if I felt that my vote was being disenfranchised and I did not have the same right as everyone else in this country, I'd be at the Capitol.
Well, when it comes to the Proud Boys who were charged with seditious conspiracy, they actually had a plan to go in there, and people went in there with certain like weapons, like zip ties. Someone had a taser on them, not guns or anything, but they did have weapons. And when you think about this, the seditious conspiracy, this idea of going in and thwarting this peaceful transfer of power, that's something I don't agree with. Even if you think election fraud was real and that it was justified.
So let me ask you this, and let me just to throw it back.
Yeah, of course.
If your vote was truly not counted and your vote was thwarted, what would you do? You just sit back and throw your hands up and say, you know what, I'm done. There's no point for me. My vote didn't count this year. Maybe I'll wait in 4 more years.
I think I would protest, but not in the way they did it on January 6th. And I think the roots of the problem.
You understand why people would be there?
I understand it, but I also think they were misled. I don't think there was enough election fraud for people to.
But that's a different conversation. The conversation then needs to be maybe they were misled.
So then maybe the onus should be, who misled them? Donald Trump? Should the onus be placed on Donald Trump and the media?
That's a total argument of if they were misled.
Well, okay, I can concede the point that if I thought that the election fraud was real, I would probably protest too. But then the onus falls on the people who were spreading that lie, who were cutting up these videos. Like, do you remember in Fulton County where that suitcase of ballots got pulled out from under the table? My problem with that is, like, you know how sometimes liberals would take 5-second clips of Trump and splice it out of context?
Oh, yeah.
So that 10-second clip was also spliced out of context, because when they brought that to court, the judge looked at that 16 hours of footage from the entire day and realized that this 5-second clip does not tell the full story. This was a not suitcase, it was actually a normal ballot box that was placed there completely legitimately. The Republican and Democrat poll workers have to work together every election. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the other problem that we need to realize. If you look at some of these cities where this is happening, look at D.C. in this last primary election just a few weeks ago. In a city of 70,000 people, 700,000, it's not 70,000, 700,000 people, and you had like 3,000 people vote for Trump. I mean, how can you have a jury of your peers and a fair jury when you have 3,000 out of 700,000 people that are voting for Trump? And that's the other problem. Again, we're talking about this stuff going on right now with all these court cases, but you really have to look at what's going on back then and looking at, is this a fair, jury of his peers?
Yeah.
And that's my problem. If you look at Fulton, if you look at Washington, D.C., if you look at Philadelphia County, you had people holding signs up. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say, again, from the crowd sizes we saw leading up to the election, objectively comparing Biden to Trump, I think there's a clear front runner. But again, let me just finish one second. I'm not saying that Trump won, but we have to make sure everything is fairly counted. He
did make sure. He brought 60 court cases.
I don't agree with it. If the evidence was truly clear if the evidence was truly clear, I think, and Biden truly did win, I'd be fine. But I think that was a problem, and I think what we really need to be concerned about is the fact that now since Biden knows he's been caught, he's trying to, he's using, people keep saying about Trump being a dictator. Look at what Biden's doing. Arresting political opponents is what they do in Kiev. That's what they do in Kiev. So if you look at what's happening,
Russia,
and in Russia, I mean,
how is Joe Biden arresting political opponents? I'm pretty sure that
he's weaponizing the DOJ with Merrick Garland. Look at Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland is such a political hack.
Is he? Because he did appoint Robert. He did appoint Robert Hur to that special counsel, and Robert Hur had a pretty scathing report. I feel like Merrick Garland.
It was obvious what Robert Hur said about Biden's mental fit and mental capacity was everything someone could turn the TV on for 2 seconds and realize.
I'm not sure. Did you watch the State of the Union?
Oh yeah.
So did you think that his State of the Union showed signs of dementia? Because I thought it was pretty strong.
Well, I mean, okay, cool. I thought his State of the Union was unusual. I thought he was on some kind of drug or something, steroids. But then the next day you see him, he's in Pennsylvania, he's stumbling off the wall, he's saying this, he's saying that. It's like, I don't know what the State of the Union was about. He was angry, he was mad. It was not a uniting speech. But I'm just very worried about our country.
It was great chatting with you, Brody.
Yeah, Bodie.
Bodie, so my bad.
Yeah, no, you're good.
And stay warm out here, man. I always
Yeah.
love talking to people who I slightly disagree with.